A man who humiliates his wife in public believes she has nowhere to go. I believed that for 4 years. After church every Sunday, my family gathered in the courtyard to eat. Before handing Asha her cup of juice, I'd spit into it while my sisters laughed beside me. She never reacted, never argued. She just held her phone tightly in her lap, watching me quietly. The day that phone rang, my mother stopped laughing first.
My name is Musa, and this is the story of how I destroyed the only woman who ever truly loved me.
And how she dismantled my entire life with the one thing I was too arrogant to take from her. Asha came from Baku, a small, sun-beaten town near the border where the harmattan cracked your lips if you forgot to carry shea butter. Her father had been a schoolteacher who died of tuberculosis when she was 19. Her mother, old and diabetic, survived on the kindness of church women who brought yams to her door. Asha had no brothers, no uncles who claimed her, no family name that opened doors anywhere. What she had was a teaching certificate from the local training college and a patience that people mistook for emptiness. Musa's family was different. The Idrisus were known across Wa and the Upper West region, not wealthy by Accra standards, but powerful in the way that mattered locally. His father, before a stroke took him, had accumulated 11 plots of land, residential and farmland, all registered through the municipal assembly. His mother, Hajia Memuna, ran the household like a chief runs a village. Nothing moved without her word. Musa had 3 older sisters, Zainab, Rashida, and Fatih, all unmarried, all living in the compound, all loyal to their mother with the kind of devotion that leaves no room for independent thought. The marriage was arranged through a fabric trader who knew both families. Asha's mother wept with relief. A good family, land, stability. Asha traveled 300 kilometers to marry a man she had met twice. The first time, Musa told her she had kind eyes. She carried that sentence in her chest for weeks. The second time was at the wedding. He barely looked at her. For the first 4 months, things were tolerable. Musa was not warm, but he was not cruel. He worked at the family's hardware supply shop near the central market, selling cement and roofing sheets. Asha cooked, cleaned, swept the compound, fetched water, and knelt when Hajia Memuna entered a room. She accepted this as the cost of belonging somewhere. Then she fell pregnant, and something in the Idrisu compound shifted like a door swinging shut. Hajia Memuna began testing her. Small things at first, sending Asha to the borehole when she was 6 months along, even though the compound tap was working, making her rewash clean clothes, making her eat last after the sisters had picked through the food. Musa watched all of this from his chair, chewing his food, saying nothing. His silence was permission, and his mother understood that perfectly. The baby came, a boy named Yakubu after Asha's dead father. She had hoped that giving the child an Idrisu name might have smoothed things, but Musa agreed to Yakubu without argument, so she took it as a kindness. She was wrong about that, too. Hajia Memuna held the baby at the naming ceremony, looked at his face for a long time, and announced to the gathered relatives, "No Idrisu bone in that face, all Baku." Musa laughed. The sisters laughed. The relatives shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Asha held her son when he was handed back to her and smiled, because if she didn't smile, she would scream, and screaming was not something that was allowed in the Idrisu compound. The first time it happened was a Sunday in March. Harmattan had just ended, and the air was thick and wet with the promise of rain. After church, because Musa attended church when it suited him, performed faith the way some men perform generosity, loudly and only when there was an audience, The family gathered in the courtyard under the old neem tree. Hajia Mamuna took her plastic chair, the one no one else was allowed to sit in, and arranged herself like a woman settling onto a throne. The sisters spread a mat on the ground. Rice and stew were laid out. Asha had cooked since 5 that morning. Musa poured juice from a sachet into a metal cup. He looked at his mother. She looked back at him. And then, slowly, deliberately, making sure everyone could see, he turned his head and spat directly into the cup. The courtyard went silent for exactly 2 seconds. Then, Zainab, the eldest sister, the loudest one, the one who had once told Asha that she should be grateful to even breathe the air in their compound, burst out laughing. Rashida covered her mouth, but her shoulders shook. Fatih looked away, grinning. Hajia Mamuna didn't laugh. She just nodded once, slowly, the way a teacher nods when a student gives the correct answer. Musa slid the cup across the mat toward Asha. "Drink," he said. His voice was casual, almost bored, as if he were offering her water on a hot day. "Or are you too good for what your husband gives you?" Asha looked at the cup. She could see the spit floating on the surface of the juice, thick and white against the orange. She looked at her son sitting beside her on the mat, his small fingers pulling at a loose thread. She looked at the 3 sisters, waiting. She looked at Hajia Mamuna, whose eyes were steady and cold and full of a question that was really a command. She picked up the cup and drank. All of it. She set the cup down, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, and said nothing. Musa leaned back on his elbows and stretched his arms wide, looking up at the neem tree like a man who had just discovered something wonderful about himself. And he had. He had discovered a new kind of power, the power of an audience that applauds your cruelty. It was more intoxicating than palm wine, more addictive than money, and unlike money, it cost him nothing. From that Sunday forward, it became ritual. Every week after church, the courtyard, the mat, the food, the juice, the spit. It never got old for them. Each Sunday was a fresh performance, a new opportunity to watch Asha swallow what they gave her. Zainab started bringing her phone out to record it, propping it against a bowl for a steady angle. Rashida would narrate quietly, like a commentator at a football match. "Watch her face, watch her face. She's going to drink it." Fatih sometimes told Asha to say thank you before drinking. And every single time, without exception, Asha drank. Silently, completely. Then she would set the cup down, place her hands in her lap, and grip her phone with both hands, tightly, the way a drowning person grips a piece of wood. No one asked why she held that phone so tightly. No one in the Idrisu compound had ever been curious about Asha. Curiosity requires the belief that someone has an inner life worth exploring. They did not believe that about her. One Sunday, the 14th or 15th, Asha had stopped counting. Little Yakubu, now 4 years old, reached across the mat and tried to knock the cup from his mother's hand before she could drink. His small fist connected with the metal, and the juice spilled across the mat, soaking into the rice, dripping onto Hajia Mamuna's feet. The courtyard went dead quiet. Not the quiet of surprise, the quiet of a courtroom before a verdict. Musa grabbed the boy's wrist and slapped his hand, hard. The sound was sharp and flat, like a stick breaking. Yakubu screamed, not just from pain but from the shock of his father's hand, which had never touched him before. Asha did not move. Her face did not change. But beneath the mat, where no one could see, her knuckles went white around the phone, and something behind her eyes, something that had been building for 14 Sundays, went very, very still. Hajia Mamuna pointed at the crying boy. "Teach that child manners, or I will teach him myself." Musa poured a fresh cup, spat in it, took his time, slid it across the mat. "Drink," he said, "and control your son." Asha picked up the cup and drank. Yakubu watched his mother swallow and went quiet, not because he understood what was happening, but because even a 4-year-old can feel it when fighting has become useless. What Musa didn't know, what none of them knew, not the sisters with their phones, not Hajia Mamuna with her throne, was what Asha did on weekday mornings when the compound gate closed behind her. She still taught at the primary school near the market. 3 mornings a week, she stood in front of 30 children in a classroom with a cracked blackboard and no ceiling fan, and taught them to read and write. The pay was almost nothing. 200 cedis a month, which Musa had forced her to deposit into his account after the hidden money incident. But the school gave her something that no amount of money could buy. It gave her 3 hours where no one watched her, no one commanded her, and no one spat in her cup. It was at the market on a Tuesday morning, 8 months after the spitting began, that she met Justice Ofori. He was a retired magistrate from Sunyani who had moved north after his wife died, seeking quiet. He was 71, walked with a cane he had carved himself, and bought roasted ground nuts every morning from the same woman. He noticed Asha because of how she moved through the market. Head down, shoulders drawn in, walking like someone trying to occupy less space than her body required. He had spent 34 years on the bench reading people, and he could read her. He said good morning to her 3 times across, 3 weeks before she responded. On the 4th week, she said good morning back, and her voice was so low he had to lean forward to hear it. He asked her if she was all right. She said she was fine. He looked at her for a long moment and said, "Young woman, I was a judge for 34 years. I have heard 10,000 people tell me they were fine. I know what fine looks like, and you are not it." She didn't tell him everything at once. It came in pieces, over months. A sentence here at the market, a confession there at the school compound during break. Justice Ofori listened the way judges listen, which is to say he listened for what was not being said. And when he had heard enough, he did something no one else in Asha's life had ever done. He didn't tell her to pray. He didn't tell her to be patient. He didn't tell her to submit harder. He educated her. He explained northern region land laws, how property was registered, who could claim ownership, what happened when names appeared on deeds. He explained the Matrimonial Causes Act of 1971. He explained that under Ghanaian law, any property acquired during a marriage could be subject to equitable distribution. He explained that altering land documents was not just dishonest, it was a criminal offense that carried prison time. Asha listened to all of this the way she had listened to everything in her life. Quietly, completely, missing nothing. Then she began to act. She started photographing documents. Every land deed stored in Musa's wooden cabinet in the bedroom. She waited until he fell asleep after his Saturday night palm wine sessions and photographed them one by one. Her phone's flash turned off, using only the light from the window. Every receipt from the hardware shop that she found in his trouser pockets before washing, every bank statement, every contract. She sent the images to Justice Ofori through WhatsApp, then deleted the chat history immediately, every single time. The phone that Musa had let her keep because he thought it was harmless. She was turning it into a courtroom. "Why don't you just leave?" Justice Ofori asked her once, sitting on the bench outside the school while children ran past them screaming with joy. Asha shook her head slowly. If I leave with nothing, I go back to Baku with nothing. My mother cannot feed herself. My son will grow up in a house with a leaking roof and no school fees. I will not trade one kind of suffering for another kind of suffering that also has no end. The old man was quiet for a long time. Then he said, Then we build a case, slowly, carefully, piece by piece, until there is nothing left for them to deny. Around the same time that Asha was learning property law at the market, Musa discovered that she had been saving money. Not much, 20 or 30 cedis set aside each week from the shopping money Hajia Mamuna gave her for the household, hidden inside a folded cloth beneath the mattress. Zainab found the cloth while searching for a phone charger she claimed Asha had stolen. The total was barely 1,000 cedis. It would not have changed anything. But that was not the point. The point was that Asha had been thinking, planning, operating in a space that Musa didn't control, and that was intolerable. He took the money. He took her ATM card, the one linked to the account where her teaching salary was deposited. He told Hajia Mamuna about it with theatrical outrage. She was hiding money from me, probably planning to run back to Baku. Hajia Mamuna considered this and said, Take her phone too. A woman with a phone and money is a woman who is making plans. Musa laughed. She only calls her sick mother to ask about medicines. Let her keep it. What harm can a phone do? That sentence, that single, careless, arrogant sentence, it would follow him for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, something else was happening. A property developer from Accra named Kofi Brantuo had been buying land along the new road being constructed toward Nadauli. The road would change everything. Land worth 5,000 cedis an acre would be worth 50,000 within 2 years. Kofi approached Musa about 2 family plots near the road. The price was 200,000 cedis. 200,000 cedis. It was more money than Musa had ever touched, more than the hardware shop made in 3 years. He wanted it with a hunger that bypassed his brain and went straight to his hands. The problem was that one of the 2 plots had been registered jointly, in both Musa's name and Asha's name. This had happened during the marriage registration process, a legal technicality that Musa had signed without reading carefully because he had never imagined it would matter. Asha was his wife. What was hers was his. That was how things worked in the Idrisu compound. So Musa visited a clerk he knew at the Lands Commission office in Wa, a young man who owed him favors and feared his family's name, and had new documents prepared. Documents that removed Asha's name from the registration entirely. He paid the clerk 5,000 cedis. The forgery took 2 days. The sale went through. Kofi Brantuo wired 200,000 cedis into Musa's personal account. The land was gone. Asha's name was erased, and Musa felt like a man who had swallowed the sun. What he did not know, what he could not have known because he had never once considered Asha capable of strategy, was that she had photographed the original registration document 3 months before the forgery. It was already in Justice Ofori's possession, time-stamped and backed up in 2 locations. Money changed Musa, or rather, money revealed the version of Musa that had always been there, waiting for permission to emerge. The spitting ritual, which had already been cruel, became theatrical. He was no longer just humiliating his wife, he was directing a performance. One Sunday, he made Asha say, "Thank you for feeding me, my husband," before he spat in the cup. She said it. The sisters recorded it, shrieking with laughter. Fatih posted the video to a WhatsApp group of church women. 27 people watched it. Not one of them said a word. Not one sent Asha a message. Not one told the pastor. Silence was the currency of Wa, and everyone spent it freely. The following Sunday, Musa invited a neighbor, a mechanic named Baba who owed him money for building materials, to the courtyard to watch. Baba sat on a stool with a face like cement, while Musa performed the ritual in its entirety. When it was over, Baba stood, thanked Musa for the food he hadn't touched, and walked out of the compound. He never returned. But he also never told anyone what he saw. His debt to Musa was larger than his conscience. The third Sunday, Musa told Asha to kneel before receiving her cup. She knelt. On the hard ground of the courtyard, in the dust and the heat, in front of her son, in front of the sisters with their phones raised like weapons, in front of Hajia Mamuna, who watched from her plastic throne with the satisfied stillness of a woman who believed the world was arranged exactly as God intended. Asha knelt, received the cup with both hands, drank, and set it down. Then she stood, brushed the dust from her knees, and sat back on the mat. That night, long after midnight, when the compound was silent and Musa's snoring rattled through the walls, Asha locked herself in the bathroom. She did not cry. She had stopped crying 11 months ago, not because the pain had lessened, but because tears had become a luxury she could not afford. They blurred her vision, and she needed to see clearly. She sat on the concrete floor with her back against the wall and opened her phone. She scrolled through the photographs, 47 documents, 12 bank statements, the original joint land registration with both their names, 6 pages from the hardware shop's account book that she had photographed while Musa slept, and a screenshot of the WhatsApp group where her humiliation had been shared for entertainment. She made one call. It rang twice before the old man answered. "Justice Ofori, I am ready." There was a pause, then the sound of a man sitting up in bed, the creak of an old wooden frame. "Are you certain?" "I am certain. I will contact the lawyer in Accra, Adwoa Mensah. She handles property and divorce cases in the north. Give me 2 weeks." "Take whatever time you need," Asha said. Her voice was steady. Not brave, not angry, steady. "I have been waiting 4 years. 2 more weeks is nothing." Those 2 weeks were the worst of Asha's life, not because the cruelty got worse, though it did, but because she had to endure it while knowing it was almost over. Patience is hardest when the end is visible. Musa, flushed with his new wealth, threw a celebration at the compound. He bought a second-hand Toyota Hilux from a dealer in Tamale and parked it in the courtyard like a monument to himself. He gave his mother money for new clothes. He gave each sister a phone, Samsung, still in the box, wrapped in plastic. He bought a generator so the compound would have light when Nedco cut the power. He was generous with everyone who shared his blood and merciless to the one person who had given him a son. Then, one evening, he made an announcement. He was sitting in the courtyard eating banku and okra soup when he said, almost casually, as if discussing the weather, "I am thinking of taking a second wife. This one has given me only 1 child in 5 years." He didn't look at Asha. He spoke about her the way you speak about a broken appliance, something that had failed its function and needed to be replaced. Hajia Mamuna clapped her hands together. "I have been praying for this. There is a girl in Jirapa, good family, good hips. She will give you 4 sons." The sisters buzzed with excitement. A new wife meant new alliances, new dynamics, new entertainment. For the next 3 days, Hajia Mamuna brought potential second wives to the compound. Young women, some barely 20, who sat in the courtyard sipping water while Hajia Mamuna inspected them like livestock. Asha was made to serve them, carrying the water, offering ground nuts, kneeling when addressed. One of the girls, a 19-year-old named Safia from Jarapa, looked at Asha while she poured water, and something crossed her face. Recognition, maybe, or pity. Asha met her eyes briefly, smiled the smile she had perfected over 4 years, the one that meant nothing, and moved on. Musa was untouchable. The money was in his account. The land was sold. His family worshipped him. His wife was on her knees. He had planned for every possibility except one, that the woman pouring water for his potential second wife was not broken. She was counting days. He had exactly 6 left. Sunday arrived the way all Sundays arrived in the Idrisu compound, with church in the morning, the courtyard in the afternoon, the neem tree throwing its shade across the mat, the plastic chairs arranged in their permanent hierarchy. Hajia Mamuna took her seat. The sisters settled in. Yakubu sat pressed against his mother's side, his small body curved into hers like a question mark. Musa poured the juice. He was in a good mood, a man riding the peak of his own life, unaware that peaks are where the falling begins. He looked at his mother while he did it. That was part of the ritual, the shared glance, the private understanding between them that this was not cruelty, but order. That Asha's humiliation was the foundation on which the family stood. He spat into the cup, thick, deliberate, taking his time. Zainab propped her phone against a bowl, recording. Rashida leaned forward, grinning. Fatih waited. Musa slid the cup across the mat. Drink. Asha reached for it. Her fingers touched the metal. The same metal she had touched every Sunday for 4 years, warm from the sun and slippery with condensation. And her phone rang. The sound cut through the courtyard like a knife through fabric. Everyone heard it. Asha looked at the screen. Her expression did not change. It had not changed in 4 years, and it did not change now. She answered the call with the same quiet composure she used to drink the spit. Yes, I am here. You can come now. She ended the call, set the phone in her lap, picked up the cup of juice, held it, did not drink. For the first time in 4 years, the cup stayed in her hand, untouched, suspended between obedience and refusal. Musa frowned. Who is coming? Your dead father? He looked at the sisters for their laughter. It came, thinner this time, uncertain. Maybe he'll bring money. Hajia Mamuna smiled, but her eyes moved to the compound gate. 7 minutes passed. Then they all heard it, the sound of engines on the dirt road. 2 vehicles pulling into the compound. A white Toyota sedan and a dark blue government vehicle with the Lands Commission emblem on the door panel. Dust rose behind them like a curtain being drawn back. Justice Ofori stepped out of the first car slowly, leaning on his cane. Behind him came Adwoa Mensah, young, sharp-faced, wearing a dark suit and carrying 2 thick folders. From the government vehicle came 2 Lands Commission officials with lanyards and clipboards. The courtyard, which had been full of laughter and juice and spit 8 minutes ago, went completely silent. The kind of silence that has weight, the kind you can feel pressing against your eardrums. Hajia Mamuna stood. She did not know these people, but she had spent a lifetime recognizing power, and power had just walked through her gate in a government vehicle. Her hand went to her chest. Musa stayed seated. His jaw was tight. Who are you people? What business do you have in my compound? Justice Ofori did not address Musa first. He looked at Asha, a long, steady look, the kind of look a man gives someone he has been walking beside, invisibly, for more than a year. Asha met his eyes, and gave the smallest nod, barely a movement, but it carried the weight of everything she had endured to reach this moment. Then Justice Ofori turned to face the courtyard. "My name is Justice Kwame Ofori. I served as a magistrate in Sunyani for 34 years. I am here today as a legal witness and advisor in the matter of fraudulent property transfer involving the assets of Asha Idrisu." Musa stood so fast, his plastic chair toppled backward and hit the ground with a crack that made Zainab flinch. Adwoa Mensah stepped forward and opened the first folder. Her voice was calm, precise, and utterly without emotion. The voice of someone who had done this many times and understood that the facts did not need drama to be devastating. She explained that 2 plots of land near the Ndawli Road, sold to one Kofi Brantuo for 200,000 cedis, had been registered jointly in the names of Musa Idrisu and Asha Idrisu at the time of their marriage. She produced the original registration document and placed it on the mat. Then she produced the altered version, the one Musa had filed with the Lands Commission, and placed it beside the first. "These 2 documents tell different stories," Adwoa said. "The original, filed and stamped 5 years ago, carries both names. The version used for the recent sale carries only one. The clerk who processed the alteration has given a sworn statement." The Lands Commission officials confirmed that a formal investigation had been opened. The sale to Kofi Brantuo was frozen. If the forgery was confirmed, and the photographic evidence, the clerk's statement, and the document comparison left very little room for doubt, Musa would be required to return the full 200,000 cedis, or face criminal prosecution for fraud, forgery, and the unlawful disposal of marital property. Musa's face traveled through every human emotion in the span of 30 seconds: confusion, denial, rage, calculation, fear. He looked at Asha. She was still sitting on the mat, the cup of juice with his spit still floating in it, untouched, held loosely in her hand. She looked back at him with the same quiet eyes he had stared into every Sunday for 4 years, the eyes he had never once tried to understand. "How?" he whispered. It was the first honest word he had spoken in their marriage. Justice Ofori answered him. "She photographed every document in your office, every deed, every bank statement, every receipt. She has been building this case for over a year, meeting with me twice a week while you sold cement and laughed at your own cruelty. The phone you let her keep because you thought she was powerless. That was her evidence room, her archive, her weapon." Hajia Mamuna stepped forward, her voice shaking for the first time anyone could remember. "This is a family matter. You cannot come into our compound and—" "It became a legal matter," Adwoa said, without raising her voice by even a fraction. "When your son forged government documents and sold property that was not solely his to sell. Family does not override the law, not in Washington, not anywhere." Adwoa opened the second folder. "There is also the matter of a divorce petition." The courtyard, already silent, somehow found a deeper silence, the kind that exists at the bottom of wells. Asha Idrisu has filed for divorce under the Matrimonial Causes Act of 1971. The petition cites systematic emotional abuse and sustained public humiliation over a period of 4 years. She paused. Let the words land. Accompanying the petition are 14 video recordings made by members of this household, showing the petitioner being forced to consume food deliberately contaminated by her spouse. These videos were recovered from a WhatsApp group containing 27 members. Zainab's hand shot to her pocket, where her phone suddenly felt like a grenade. Rashida stared at the ground. Fatih opened her mouth and closed it again without making a sound. The videos, the clips they had recorded for fun, the content they had shared in a group chat called Sunday Laughs. Every angle, every zoom, every narrated moment of Asha kneeling, drinking, swallowing. All of it was now numbered, catalogued, and attached to a legal filing as evidence of domestic abuse. Their entertainment had become exhibits. Their laughter had been transcribed. Musa lunged, not at the lawyers, at Asha. His arm swung wide, reaching for her, for the phone, for anything he could still grab and break and control. One of the Lands Commission officials, a broad man who moved faster than his size suggested, stepped between them and caught Musa's arm mid-swing. Justice Ofori spoke quietly. "I would advise you not to do that. There are 4 witnesses present, 2 of them government officials. Any physical contact will be added to the petition and may result in immediate arrest." Musa pulled his arm free. He was breathing like a man who had been running. He turned to his mother, the woman who had been his compass, his co-conspirator, his foundation for his entire adult life. Hajia Mamuna was staring at the 2 documents lying side by side on the mat. The original deed, the forged deed, her son's handwriting on one, his lie exposed on the other. Her face was doing something it had never done before. It was rearranging itself around a truth she could not deny. She did not defend him. She did not speak. She took 1 step backward and lowered herself into her plastic chair, the throne from which she had governed this family for 20 years. And for the first time in the entire 4 years of Asha's marriage, Hajia Mamuna looked like an old woman sitting in a plastic chair. Nothing more. Asha stood. She was still holding the cup, Musa's spit still floating on the surface of the warm orange juice. She walked to where Musa stood, shaking with rage and something newer and worse than rage. She held the cup between them. He looked at it. She looked at him. Then she turned the cup over and poured every drop onto the ground at his feet. Slowly, watching it soak into the dust, every Sunday's worth of humiliation returned to the earth in a single, silent gesture. She did not speak. There was nothing left to say that the law would not say better. She took Yakubu's hand. The boy had been standing near the neem tree, watching everything with the gravity of a child who has learned too early that adults are capable of terrible things. He went to his mother without hesitation, without looking back at his father, without crying. Asha opened the back door of Justice Ofori's car, lifted her son inside, sat down beside him, closed the door. The white sedan reversed out of the compound. The dust settled slowly in the afternoon heat. The courtyard was silent except for the sound of Hajia Mamuna's breathing and, somewhere far away, the call to prayer from the mosque on the hill. 8 months later, the story had finished writing itself in the language of consequences. The land sale collapsed entirely. Kofi Brantuo, advised by his own lawyers in Accra, sued Musa for the full return of 200,000 cedis, money that Musa had already spent on the truck, the celebration, the phones for his sisters, the generator, and a down payment on a house he would now never live in. The court ruled against him. The hardware shop, the family's last remaining asset, the business his father had built over 30 years, was seized and sold to cover the debt. The amount raised was not enough. Musa still owed 63,000 cedis. Hajia Mamuna left the compound within 3 months. She moved to Jirapa, to a cousin's house, where she slept in a room smaller than the bathroom she had once commanded. She told relatives that her son had been tricked by outsiders, that the Baku woman had used witchcraft. But the WhatsApp videos had spread far beyond the original 27 viewers. Women in the Jirapa market recognized her face. They did not greet her. They looked through her the way she had once looked through Asha. Zainab moved to Kumasi to find work as a seamstress. Rashida followed her 3 weeks later. Fatih stayed in Way, but moved to the other side of town and changed her phone number and told new acquaintances that her family name was Mahama, not Idrisu. The 3 sisters who had filmed their brother's cruelty as entertainment discovered that the internet does not forget, and that laughter recorded on a phone can echo long after the laughing stops. The compound, the courtyard with the neem tree, the plastic chairs, the mat where Asha had knelt and drunk and said nothing, was sold by the landlord to a developer who leveled it for a commercial building. Musa had nowhere to go. He lived in a single room near the lorry station, working odd jobs for men who had once bought cement from him. On some evenings, when the light was a certain color and the wind blew from the west, he sat on a bench outside his room and stared at his hands, the hands that had poured the juice and slid the cup, and tried to understand how everything had been taken from him by a woman he had been certain was empty. Asha moved to Accra with Yakubu. Justice Ofori connected her with a legal aid organization in Medina that helped women across northern Ghana navigate property disputes, land rights, and divorce proceedings. She worked as a case coordinator, not a lawyer, but something that no law degree could produce. A woman who understood the system from the inside because it had crushed her, and who had survived not by escaping it, but by learning its rules and using them. She helped women photograph their documents. She taught them what questions to ask at the Lands Commission. She showed them how to back up files, how to delete chat histories, how to keep a phone charged and hidden and ready. She was not loud about this work. She did not give interviews or post on social media. She simply sat with women who reminded her of herself, women with their heads down and their shoulders pulled in. And she told them the same thing Justice Ofori had told her at the market in Awa. If you leave with nothing, you arrive with nothing. So we build a case, slowly, carefully, until there is nothing left for them to deny. Yakubu was enrolled in a good school. His teachers said he was quiet, but extraordinarily sharp. He asked questions about everything: how bridges held weight, how phones sent messages, how courts decided who was right. Asha watched him sometimes from the doorway of his small room while he hunched over his homework, his pencil moving steadily, his face focused and still. And she let herself feel something she had not allowed herself to feel in 4 years. The belief that things could be different. Not perfect, just different. And different was enough. She never remarried. She never contacted Musa or his family. She never sought revenge beyond what the law provided. When people asked how she had survived those 4 years of humiliation without breaking, she always gave the same answer, delivered in the same quiet voice that had fooled an entire family into believing she was empty. I was never enduring. I was preparing. I let her keep that phone because I thought she had no power. I did not know she was photographing every document in my office while I slept. I did not know she was meeting a retired judge at the market who was teaching her the very laws I had broken. I did not know that the woman kneeling in my courtyard every Sunday, swallowing my spit with her eyes down, was building a case file on her knees. I thought silence meant surrender. I thought her obedience meant I had won. I thought my mother's approval and my sister's laughter meant I was strong. But I was only performing strength for an audience of people who were just as blind as I was. We were all watching Asha, and none of us could see her. The phone rang on a Sunday, and everything I thought I owned, the land, the family, the respect, the silence of a woman who I believed would never speak, all of it was gone before the juice dried on the ground where she poured it. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't curse me. She didn't beg or cry or threaten. She just answered the phone and said 5 words that ended my life as I knew it. You can come now. If this story made you feel something, if you know someone who has been quiet for too long and you wonder what they are building in that silence, share this video. Subscribe to this channel because every week we bring you stories of people who were underestimated, and they always rise.